What happens when an ordinary family becomes the center of the most documented haunting in British history? Welcome to Sherlock Mode. It was August 30th, 1977, a warm summer evening in North London. The Hodgson family was settling down for the night in their modest council house at 284 Green Street, Enfield. Peggy Hodgson, a 47-year-old single mother, was tucking her 4 children into bed. Janet, age 11, and Margaret, 13, shared the back bedroom. But that night, something felt different. Janet suddenly called out to her mother. "Mom, the beds are wobbling," she shouted. Peggy dismissed it as childish imagination, telling them to go to sleep. The next evening, August 31st, would change their lives forever. Peggy heard a loud thud from upstairs. Her heart pounded as she climbed the narrow staircase. What she discovered in the girls' bedroom defied all logic. A heavy chest of drawers had moved from its position against the wall to the center of the room. Peggy tried to push the chest back, but it seemed to resist her efforts. The girls swore they hadn't touched it. Fear crept into Peggy's voice as she realized something impossible was happening. That night, the knocking began. Rhythmic, deliberate rapping sounds echoed through the walls. It sounded like someone desperately trying to get in. The terrified family called their neighbors, Vic and Peggy Nottingham. The 4 adults searched every inch of the house, but found nothing that could explain the sounds. In desperation, Peggy called the police. At 1 a.m. on September 1st, 2 officers arrived at 284 Green Street. What they witnessed would shake them to their core. WPC Caroline Heaps later reported, "I saw a chair wobble and slide across the floor approximately 3 to 4 feet. It came to rest after moving on its own accord." The officers checked for wires, strings, or any explanation. They found nothing. The chair had moved by itself, witnessed by trained law enforcement. Unable to help, the police left. But the Hodgson family's nightmare was just beginning. The next day, a desperate neighbor called the Daily Mirror newspaper. Reporter Douglas Bince and photographer Graham Morris arrived at midnight. They expected to find a hoax. Instead, they witnessed something that would haunt them forever. Within minutes of entering the house, chaos erupted. Lego bricks flew across the room with incredible force. One struck Graham Morris above the eye, leaving a mark for days. Morris later said, "I was watching everyone through my camera. No one was throwing anything. The kids were screaming and crying. It was horrible." The Daily Mirror contacted the Society for Psychical Research. Maurice Grosse, a successful inventor and recent member, volunteered to investigate. Grosse had recently lost his daughter Janet in a motorcycle accident. Grief-stricken and searching for evidence of life after death, he saw this as his chance for answers. On September 5th, 1977, Maurice Grosse entered 284 Green Street. He brought with him tape recorders, cameras, and scientific equipment. What he captured would become legendary. For the first few days, nothing happened. Grosse waited patiently, his equipment ready. Then, on September 8th, the poltergeist revealed itself. A loud crash echoed from Janet's bedroom. They rushed upstairs to find her bedside chair thrown 4 feet across the room. Janet was fast asleep, seemingly undisturbed. An hour later, it happened again. This time, photographer Graham Morris was ready. His camera captured the moment that would define the case. The phenomena escalated rapidly. Marbles flew from invisible hands. Doors slammed shut on their own. A teapot shook violently without any external force. Guy Lyon Playfair, an experienced paranormal investigator, joined Grosse on September 12th. Together, they would document over 1,500 separate incidents. The story exploded across Britain. On September 10th, the Daily Mirror's front page screamed, "The House of Strange Happenings." The world was watching. BBC Radio 4 sent reporter Rosalind Morris to investigate. She spent the night in the house and recorded hours of unexplained sounds and voices. The phenomena seemed to center around Janet. She was found levitating above her bed, witnessed by neighbors passing in the street outside. A baker and a lollipop lady looked up at the house and saw Janet spinning against the bedroom window, as if held by invisible hands. But the most chilling development was yet to come. In December 1977, 3 months after the haunting began, Janet's voice began to change. It started as whistles and barks. Then, impossibly, A deep, gravelly voice of an old man began speaking through the young girl's mouth. The voice identified itself as Bill Wilkins, claiming, "I went blind, had a hemorrhage, and died in a chair downstairs in the corner." Gross was stunned. He contacted the previous tenant's family and discovered that Bill Wilkins had indeed died in that exact chair in 1963. This was our story's major turning point. The investigators now had verifiable information that Janet couldn't possibly have known. The voice would speak for hours through Janet without her showing any strain or throat damage. Speech experts were baffled by the phenomenon. To test the voice, investigators put tape over Janet's mouth and filled it with water. The gruff voice continued speaking clearly. Even more disturbing, the voice sometimes came from different parts of the room, away from Janet entirely. Ventriloquism couldn't explain this. The activity reached terrifying new heights. Janet was found with curtains wrapped around her neck, nearly strangling her. Something was trying to hurt her. Fires started spontaneously throughout the house. Matches would ignite by themselves. Water appeared in mysterious puddles on the floor. The iron fireplace frame was violently wrenched from the wall of an empty room. The sound was described as deafening, like metal being torn apart. Messages appeared in the bathroom, written in human excrement. The word, "help," was spelled out in 20 pieces of tape on the wall. Over 30 independent witnesses experienced the phenomena. Police officers, journalists, neighbors, and scientists all testified to impossible events. Physicist David Robertson conducted controlled experiments with Janet. He witnessed her bend metal without touching it and affect sensitive equipment. Professor John Hasted tested Janet's ability to alter her weight. She was one of only 3 subjects out of 20 who produced anomalous results. The haunting attracted international attention. Ed and Lorraine Warren, famous American paranormal investigators, visited the house in 1978. Lorraine Warren sensed the presence of a troubled spirit. She identified multiple entities in the house, with Bill Wilkins as the primary communicator. But not everyone believed. Anita Gregory, a fellow SPR member, investigated and concluded that the girls were faking at least some of the phenomena. Gregory secretly filmed Janet bending spoons and attempting to bend iron bars. She argued that the children were playing elaborate tricks. Janet and Margaret later admitted to faking some incidents, but they maintained that the majority of the phenomena were real and terrifying. The famous levitation photographs were dismissed by skeptics as showing Janet jumping from her bed rather than floating. Critics argued that the gruff voice could be produced using false vocal cords, a technique actors can learn with practice. However, skeptics couldn't explain how an 11-year-old girl could speak in this voice for hours without damaging her throat. Maurice Grosse recorded over 250 hours of audio evidence. These tapes captured knocking sounds, voices, and conversations with the alleged spirit. The recordings are now housed in the Society for Psychical Research archives, digitized and available for study by researchers worldwide. Technology failures plagued the investigation. Cameras would malfunction, tape recorders would jam, and equipment would mysteriously disappear. BBC reporter Rosalind Morris experienced repeated equipment failures. Fresh batteries would drain instantly, and new tapes would break. The phenomena gradually subsided in 1978. Janet's adolescence seemed to be ending the poltergeist activity, as often happens in such cases. A priest visited the house to perform a blessing. After his intervention, the most violent phenomena stopped, though minor incidents continued. By 1979, the haunting had largely ended. The Hodgson family tried to return to normal life, but the house retained its sinister reputation. Years later, new residents moved into 284 Green Street. They too reported strange phenomena, suggesting the house itself might be haunted. The case has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and films, including The Conjuring 2. But the truth remains elusive. In 2023, Apple TV Plus released a documentary series using the original audio recordings to recreate the events with startling realism. Today, Janet Hodgson lives quietly, rarely speaking about her experiences. The trauma of those 18 months continues to affect her life. Maurice Grosse remained convinced until his death in 2006 that he had witnessed genuine paranormal phenomena at Enfield. Guy Lyon Playfair defended the case throughout his life, publishing multiple editions of his book, This House is Haunted, until his death in 2018. The house at 284 Green Street still stands today, an ordinary council house that became the center of an extraordinary mystery. Now, let us analyze this case with the precision of Sherlock Holmes himself. What really happened at 284 Green Street? The evidence for genuine paranormal activity is substantial. Over 250 hours of audio recordings captured unexplained sounds and voices. Multiple independent witnesses, including police officers and journalists, testified to seeing furniture move without explanation. The voice phenomenon provided verifiable information about Bill Wilkins that Janet couldn't have known through normal means. Scientific experiments produced anomalous results that couldn't be explained by conventional physics or psychology. However, the evidence for deception is equally compelling. The girls admitted to faking some incidents, raising questions about everything. The famous levitation photographs can be explained as a child jumping from her bed rather than supernatural floating. The timing of the phenomena coincided with Janet's adolescence, when poltergeist activity typically peaks due to psychological stress. The investigator Maurice Grosse was grieving his daughter Janet's death and desperately seeking proof of life after death. The family received unprecedented attention and support during the investigation, providing strong motivation to continue the phenomena. Yet some elements remain unexplained. How did Janet sustain the gruff voice for hours without throat damage? Why did multiple witnesses report the voice coming from different parts of the room, away from Janet entirely? How did the poltergeist provide accurate information about Bill Wilkins that wasn't publicly available? What caused the systematic equipment failures that plagued every investigator who brought recording devices to the house? The truth may lie somewhere between fraud and the supernatural. Perhaps the phenomena began as genuine paranormal activity. As the investigation progressed and media attention grew, the children may have begun supplementing real phenomena with tricks. This would explain why some evidence appears genuine while other incidents were clearly staged for investigators. The Enfield Poltergeist remains one of the most documented and controversial paranormal cases in history. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, the case provides a fascinating glimpse into human psychology and the nature of belief. The house at 284 Green Street stands as a testament to one of the most extraordinary 18 months in paranormal history. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, like and subscribe to Sherlock Mode.